Welcome to Food for Thought. My name is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. I'm your host. You can find me at joyfulvegan.com. You can find me on social media, and you can find my books wherever books are sold. You can join me in my online classes, workshops, events, and you can join me in any of my all-inclusive vegan trips around the world. This podcast is listener supported, so if it's something you value and you'd like to enjoy some perks, besides knowing that you're helping keep this podcast going and ad-free, just head over to patreon.com/Colleen Patrick-Goudreau to become a supporter today at your chosen level. You can also become a subscriber on Apple Podcasts and get bonus episodes. So thank you so much in advance for supporting, for listening, for subscribing, for following, and for leaving ratings and reviews if you haven't done that yet. It really helps, and I really appreciate it. Today's episode is Zero Waste Update, Satisfying Successes and Funny Fails. I love my alliteration. I can't help it. I can't help it. Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Very quickly, I hope you can join me for my online workshop coming up on February 3rd. It's on avoiding burnout, preventing compassion fatigue, which is really empathic distress, and we'll talk about that, and cultivating resilience, especially at a time when people feel overwhelmed by bad news. We're going to talk about how to cultivate resilience and to see through the lens of hope rather than despair or pessimism or cynicism. You can register at joyfulvegan.com. You can still get the early bird discount, which is running out soon. And also, you can still get our early bird pricing for our Northern Italy trip in June this year, 2024. It ends at the end of this month. And I had already recorded this podcast when I just got the news that we officially confirmed the Northern Italy 2024 trip. I couldn't announce it here on the podcast until we told all of the people who are booked on that trip that we have met the minimum. It is confirmed. And so I just wanted to convey that to you. So if you're interested in joining me for a spectacular vegan adventure filled with incredible food, hiking, historic sites, and Venice, I mean, what else can I say? Not to mention meeting amazing new friends. Go to joyfulvegan.com, click on trips, or just go to joyfulvegantrips.com. And there's also early bird pricing for Rwanda. That's going to end soon. That's in November. And well, the early bird pricing ends before November. The trip is in November. And we're only a couple people away from confirming that trip. So same thing, head over to joyfulvegantrips.com and join me for a trip of a lifetime, seeing mountain gorillas in the only home they have. They only live in this one part of the world. And that part of the world is growing. Their home, their habitat is growing thanks to the success of ethical gorilla treks, such as the one you will experience in this beautiful country. Okay, so many of you know that I embarked on a zero waste journey back in 2018, inspired by the fact that I knew I could do better in terms of living sustainably. And I'm going to be honest, I was doing pretty well. I was doing pretty well at the time, and still now. I shop with canvas bags. We irrigate our gardens with gray water from our showers and sinks because we rerouted our plumbing. We shop at farmers markets. We purposefully live where we can walk everywhere. And when we do drive, we have a single car, which is an electric car. We have solar panels. I've been vegan for now almost 25 years. At the time, it was 20 years, but I still felt I could do more. I wanted to push myself to see where I could do better. And so I, quote unquote, became zero waste, which is really aspirational more than possible to be zero anything. But it has been life altering. And at the time, I wouldn't have thought there was much more I could do, which is why it's always good to push ourselves. And of course, the beginning of the year is often when we look to, hopefully, ways to challenge ourselves, to push ourselves. But that's what happens. Once you start looking around you, once your eyes are open in one area, they become open in other areas. That's actually stage 8 of the 10 stages I identify and talk about in The Joyful Vegan. And in a series I did on this podcast. Stage 8 is expansion of awareness and skills. It's kind of part of the journey that we all go on once we kind of open our eyes to one issue. It kind of leads us to seeing other issues that are related where we could do better. So I made the connection. That's what happens. And it became part of who I am, being zero waste, and what I teach and what I share and how I'm identified now. People kind of now see me also as someone who, kind of focuses on that area as well. Now, I've always said from the beginning that the term zero waste itself can be a barrier for people who think it's an all or nothing unattainable approach. to sustainability that prioritizes perfection and purity. And maybe some people teach it that way. Maybe some people have, inadvertently taught it that way. But I do think many who try to make efforts like this, they fail. And then they conclude that it's an ideal that only a disciplined few can attain, and it's not for them. And I think people think that about being vegan as well. And so I know people feel overwhelmed. I know some people don't have access to zero waste stores. I know that people don't have a lot of zero waste models to look to. I know some people lament that they don't have buy-in from their spouse or their children or their parents or their colleagues. I know some people feel like the majority of the world is wrapped up in some kind of plastic. I know that some people hold the perception that it takes more time or more money or more effort. They don't know where to start. And so that's why I started guiding you, my listeners, and my followers on this path, if they were open to it, if you're still listening. Because whether it's changing the way you eat or shop or just the way you operate in this world, change is hard. Contemplating new ways of thinking and shopping and living and being and cooking is hard. It can be overwhelming. It can be paralyzing. And so, despite the desire of so many people to contribute to a better world, I know that many people feel discouraged rather than empowered, and they do nothing at all rather than do even a small amount. I know that many people are open to doing the right thing. And I know that it's opened up some new ways of being in this world for many of you. And I'm very grateful for that. I hear from many of you who tell me that. So even if you're making small changes, every bit makes a difference. It's not a competition. I know I talked in that one episode, I did get some flack from someone, I don't even know who it was, who, I talked about level 5 zero waste vegan or something. It was a joke because, I will push myself probably more than I have to, but it's also part of my experiment to see like what has to be done, what's required. And how far do we have to go? Like, so when I talked about the story of when I was in New Jersey visiting family at the time, and I was staying in an Airbnb that didn't have composting, didn't have a, option for that. I thought, oh my God, like throwing away food is just so painful. Like just knowing it's just going to rot in some landfill was painful. So I went to great lengths to figure out how to get that food that I kept in the freezer, which a lot of people do even in their own homes. If you're going to be composting or making stock or something, you can keep the veggie scraps in your freezer. So I kept it in the freezer until I figured out what to do. It's only a few days. I wasn't there forever, visiting my mother who was in a nursing home at the time. And I figured it out. There was a vegan restaurant who worked with the sustainability department at Rutgers University, and I was able to like bring them all of my food scraps. So, you don't have to go to those lengths, and I don't do it every time, and I'll talk more about that. But, the idea is that we can do something, right? My motto has always been, don't do nothing because you can't do everything, do something, anything. You don't have to be as crazy as me. But I think that perspective has empowered and guided countless people on their vegan journey, and it applies to the zero waste journey as well. And I know it has. We don't need a few people doing this perfectly. We need a lot of people doing it imperfectly. It being being vegan, being zero waste, whatever it is, living sustainably, living compassionately, living consciously. If we're all oriented to doing the best we can you imagine how much further we would get in all of the issues we feel so strongly about? And that's a message you can carry to the people around you too. People don't have to do everything, right? It's the idea when someone says to me, oh, I could give up everything, but I couldn't give up cheese. And when I turn to them and say, well, give up everything except cheese then. Why are you waiting to do something because you think you have to do everything? Don't do nothing because you can't do everything. They go, I never thought of that. That's amazing. Thank you. I will. And then actually where it takes them is they go further. So, don't underestimate that. And I know that some people feel like they shouldn't say that because I think they think that it's going to give people permission to not do anything. It's not. It doesn't. It gives them permission to be imperfect, but to do something. So it's a message I think we can all convey to each other, to everybody we come in contact with, because it's completely self-defeatist to do nothing at all. Right. And so aspiring to live zero waste is just that. For me, it's an aspiration. So even though I still call it like, I'm zero waste or I live zero waste, it's just a shortcut to saying, I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. I'm not going to be perfect in this imperfect world. None of us will be, but there's a lot we can do. And so over the years, I've written a lot about this journey. I've shared it with you on this podcast. I am writing my 8th book, which includes zero waste content. It's called A Year of Compassion, 52 Weeks of Living Zero Waste, Plant-Based and Cruelty-Free. And I'm talking in that book, just like I have in this podcast, about recycling and food waste and companion animals and traveling and kind of all the ways we can kind of look to where we can live more sustainably. But I wanted to take this opportunity to share with you what some frustrating and also funny zero waste fails are that I've experienced. I wanted to share what I have implemented in my life, and I should say in our lives, because my amazing husband has really stepped up and joined me for the most part on this journey. He's amazing. So I want to share what we've implemented in our lives, in our home, especially in our home, and so on. And so before I share some specifics, I want to remind you that for me, being zero waste is first and foremost a mindset. It's not just about behavioral changes. It's really about changing the lens through which we look at the world, right? Because at its core, for me, and these are just kind of, this is a shortcut way I want you to think about zero waste. It's not about, I think several years ago it was about like, how much garbage can I fit in a jar? That's ridiculous. I was never part of that movement. So it's not about that. So forget behavioral changes for a moment and think about orienting to what it means, what the definition is. And for me, it's about valuing and taking responsibility for goods we bring into our lives. It's about value, it's about responsibility, and it's about use. Right. So it's not necessarily about like, minimalism, right? So some people say, like, oh, but then I wouldn't be able to buy anything anymore. No, 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 no. That's not what it's about. If I'm going to purchase something, I'm going to purchase something that I'm going to value, that I'm going to use, and I'm going to take responsibility for. That doesn't mean we never buy anything again, right? And so we'll talk about what that kind of roadmap looks like, what that guideline looks like, and what questions we can ask ourselves. I'll talk about that at the end, right? So the idea is that it's a shift in mindset. For me, it was a shift from thinking of myself as a consumer, which really, if you think about that word consuming, it has this kind of gluttonous aspect to it. Like I'm consuming things. I'm just compiling things. I'm hoarding things. And that I think leads to us bringing things into our lives that we don't need, that we don't really want, that we can't take responsibility for, that we can't take good care of, that it doesn't have quality, that doesn't have value, right? So instead of thinking of myself as a consumer of goods, I see myself as an owner. And when you shift to that, I think you make different decisions. I know I have. And so you can listen to more past podcasts from more of these kind of fundamental concepts about zero waste, but they really do shape my thinking and my behavior. That way of thinking, those principles shape my way of being. And I think that might be helpful for you. Hopefully, I hope it makes it more approachable for you, more accessible for you, and certainly less intimidating. Also, zero waste falls under the category of living sustainably. I'm kind of using these terms interchangeably because that's really what it's about. I want to have as light a footprint on this earth as possible. I don't want to leave an imprint. I want to leave and leave dust behind. That's what I want, right? And so knowing that I'm not making a negative difference as much as I'm able in my life, and by the time I leave this earth, that's what's meaningful to me. And so under this umbrella, there really are things we can prioritize more than others. Of course, we should care about reducing and eliminating the use of plastic straws and plastic bags. That's what I do. Like, that's great. If you can do that, that's fantastic. And I was going to say, and in terms of impact, if we really want to have the most positive impact and mitigate the worst of human behavior, our attention might really want to be focused on kind of bigger issues. It's not that we shouldn't try not to use plastic straws and plastic bags, but if that's what makes you feel frustrated and feeling like you're failing, right, then focus on the big picture because first and foremost, the big picture and the bigger things are going to have the biggest impact. And I will be really honest with you, the biggest impact we can have, if you were to say to me, for sustainability, for compassion, for, mitigating animal cruelty, all of it, where should I start? It really is eliminating the consumption of meat, dairy, and eggs. It's just like that's where it starts. And the data support this. So I just read the book. I really encourage you to get this book. It's called Oh, you're gonna love the title. I love the title. It's right up my alley. It's called Not the End of the World, Not the End of the World, How We Can Be the First Generation to Build a Sustainable Planet. It's by Hannah Ritchie. I highly recommend it. I learned about it in an interview with her in a recent New York Times Sunday magazine. And I was so thrilled to discover her. She focuses on what is working and what we need to do more of what's working to keep moving in the right direction, which completely aligns with my understanding of where things are based on the science. This isn't just Pollyanna optimism. The data indicate significant progress on environmental challenges, suggesting that we might be on the path to achieving genuine sustainability for the first time in history. And you can read her book for more. Now, you can see this also in some of my other favorite books, which are Steven Pinker's Enlightenment Now, which explores the progress and positive developments in various aspects of human life and society. Also, his book, Better Angels of Our Nature, Why Violence Has Declined, which explores the historical decline of violence in human societies, challenging the notion that the world is becoming increasingly more violent. It's not. And that's what the data show. But if you looked at any headline on any day of the week, you would think the world was ending tomorrow. And that's one of the reasons I love Richie's book and I love her title. But when you look at history, when you look at the data, when you look at science, there is a different picture, a contrasting picture to that doom and gloom headline phenomena. And there's a hopeful picture. So you can read the New York Times interview if you are a New York Times subscriber. It was in the Sunday Times a couple weeks ago, and you can get her book. But let me read you her response to a couple questions that were asked in the interview. So the interviewer asked, in your book, you have this category of things that we shouldn't stress about so much, using plastic straws or single-use plastic bags. But isn't the person who says, I'm going to care about those things more likely to display the political will that we need than the person who says, I don't care? And so here's her response. I'm clear in the book that I don't think we should all use loads of plastic bottles and plastic straws, but people stress too much about it. It's an absolute disaster if they turn up to the supermarket and they don't have the recyclable bag. They feel awful for the entire day because they're not doing their bit for the environment. Does this sound familiar? And by the way, just I'm inserting here, please join me for my compassion fatigue workshop, because this is exactly what we're going to talk about, where you don't feel like you're doing enough for the animals, for the environment, etc. So join me for that because it's exactly what we're going to be talking about. So they feel awful for the entire day because they're not doing their bit for the environment. It's just trying to take a little stress out so it feels less overwhelming. The other lens to it is based on this concept of moral licensing, where we feel like, oh yeah, I've avoided the plastic straw. I've got my bag. I can drive my petrol car now and eat lots of meat. The risk is that people focus entirely on the small stuff and miss the big stuff. One reason to stress less is because some of the things people think have a positive impact actually have a negative impact, and those we should try to push back on. And so they talk about that, but I'll let you read the article or read the book for that. I wanted to get to the next thing, which is the interviewer asked, what are some things that individuals can do or behaviors they can change that are impactful? And she says, eating less meat, in particular beef, still the same thing. For most people in the world, reducing their meat consumption would have a big impact. We know that. Number 2, reducing food waste. Number 3, how you travel, walking, cycling, public transport. They're always the best. And in terms of household energy, the big thing is heating and cooling. So insulation, installing a heat pump, if you can, install solar panels. Those are the big things. So those are some of the things that she's just, putting out there. And I wanted to frame this conversation about zero waste, about my successes and failures and challenges, saying, just do the best you can, right? I'm not going to stop doing the best I can, but I'm also not going to beat myself up when I can only do good enough. Okay. I'm not going to stop. This is this all or nothing mentality people have when it comes to how they eat, when it comes to trying to be vegan or vegetarian. when it comes to them trying to be zero waste or more sustainable. We throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't have to do that. Just get up and try again and do what you can when you can. So I'm going to tell you about some of my fails. I didn't stop trying to do the right thing. I just, yeah, may have been frustrated and annoyed, and it became an anecdote and it became a story. And here I am telling you about it. But I didn't stop and say, forget it. It's not worth it. I can't do anything now. And that's what I think a lot of people do. The failures are funny, they're frustrating, but I just kept going, right? There's just a lot I can't control in this world. And that's what I want to convey to you. That's the spirit behind this episode, to share the real life experiences of someone who is trying to do her best and still coming up short. We all come up short. We will, we have, we do. But something is still better than nothing. So, with that in mind, here goes. Here's a few kind of hilarious fails. I mean, hilarious, not hilarious. They're so frustrating. Because some of it is cost. I mean, some of it is certainly cost of my time. I have definitely spent time doing these things. And that's the thing I want to convey too. Some of these things do require time up front, but once I kind of know the system and I implement a new system, a new habit, a new resource, I don't have to keep researching it over and over again. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But when it came to purchasing something that I wanted, I implement kind of some of these questions that I will again get back to at the end of I will get to at the end of the episode. But questions like, what are the materials? How can I discard it? Can I take responsibility for it? Is there a warranty? What's the best sustainable material I can use? Will I value this? Will I use it? Can I take care of it? Can I repair it if it breaks? Those kind of things. So I needed an outdoor rug. We had an outdoor rug. We have a bunch of different areas outside, and we had I don't know. I guess we had a rug that just frayed after a time, and so I needed an outdoor rug for the patio. And I wanted to make sure, obviously, that it didn't have animal products. That's like the first thing. But I also wanted to make sure it was sustainable. And I had purchased outdoor rugs from recycled plastic bottles in the past, for different parts of the outside. But I was challenging the idea when looking to buy a new rug for the outdoors, because challenging the idea of getting the recycled plastic bottles, because number one, the one I had bought a few years prior had become torn and raggedy. And in the end, two, upcycling plastic still means that eventually that plastic will end up in a landfill. Do you know what I mean? You can't just keep upcycling it. So it's great to upcycle things like plastic bottles, but it's kind of like that's not the solution. The solution is to produce less plastic. So, it's difficult, right? It's kind of like animal sanctuaries. The solution isn't that we have a system that abuses farmed animals and then, people pick up those pieces and have sanctuaries for a few, animals who, don't even make a dent in the number of animals who are being brought into this world only to be killed. Like, I'm glad they're there. And I'm so thrilled for the individuals who are saved, but that's not the long-term solution. The long-term solution is to stop producing animals for consumption. And same thing with with upcycling. Like, we need to produce no plastic bottles, not just upcycle the ones that are existing. And it's also, it's almost like it gives an excuse to those industries to just keep doing what they're doing because someone else will pick up the pieces. Anyway, you get the idea. So I was kind of challenging that idea, and I thought, okay, because the production of plastic is also harmful, right? And the production of animals is also harmful. Like, it's, all of the waste that's created when we're bringing animals into this world and then, confining them until we kill them to eat them. Like, that's also problematic. So same thing with plastic. Producing the plastic is harmful, even though we're taking that plastic and upcycling it to a rug, that's still harmful. So I was like, okay, what other options are there? I want to just look at my other options. So I dug and I dug and I looked into different options. And of course, I was looking at the most sustainable materials like hemp and sisal and flax, considering all aspects of the production process, but also the discard process, because I want to know, like, if I am bringing something into my life, what is the end of life for that thing? Right? So not only how is it produced, but how long lasting is it, and how can I discard it in the most sustainable way, right? These are all things I think about when making purchases, and that wasn't always the case, but it has become the case That's definitely one of the things that has changed for me, is kind of looking at the life of a thing I bring into my life, right? So I wound up getting 2 sisal rugs just because of all of the research I did and kind of what was available, and they've been an absolute disaster. So number 1, they're incredibly heavy. Even when they're dry, they're incredibly heavy. So they're great for indoors, by the way. Like, if you're putting them down in a room and they're gonna stay in that room and you're not moving them around, that's fantastic. Whereas, like, the recycled plastic rugs, they're like paper. They're so thin and they're so light. So even when the rains come during the rainy season, I can easily move those recycled plastic rugs, and I'm even doing that now in a couple of the places outside where they're not covered. And so I am moving them into a dry space so that they don't just keep getting pummeled, because I want them to have a longer life, right? But the sisal rugs are so heavy to move. Fine, we can move them when they're dry. And I think last year we did. We moved them into the ramada, a structure we have in our back garden that's covered, and so it at least would keep them dry from the rain. We don't have anywhere to put them inside, and we don't have a shed or anything like that. So we put them up in this structure. Fine, fine, fine. It meant that throughout the season, the wintry season, it was kind of cluttered up there and it was hard to be up there, and fine, whatever. We did it. But this year we forgot to move those rugs before the rains came, and we were out of the country when the rains came and they started getting soaked. So by the time we got home, oh my God, one of them is just gone. I think we gave one away last year. I think we did, because I was like, "This isn't working. This isn't working. So we gave it away on Buy Nothing. But there was still the other one that was on the patio. And oh my God, it's like 100 pounds. It's so heavy. So we can't even like pick it up and hang it over chairs to dry. Plus, we're just constantly getting rain and there's just nowhere to put it. And it's 100 pounds. And then what started happening is, because it's just sitting on the brick, little mold creatures, like, they're very beautiful. They're like these mold or mildew. I don't know. These little creatures, they're like star shaped. They're beautiful. But I don't want to encourage mold and mildew in the patio. And it was like they're like on the rug, but also on the brick. So I was like, oh my God, like, I can't deal with this. This is so awful. And it's just soaked. It's just soaked. And so I finally picked it up. I mean, I didn't pick it up. I was able to like struggle and like roll it. And like I rolled it down part of my hillside. Like, I'm still trying to figure out what to do. So I wrote to a company. I'll get to the company that I wrote to. And I'm going to write to a couple others about like what I should do, because sisal is biodegradable. Right? That's one of the reasons I chose this material. But biodegradable doesn't mean anything if there aren't the conditions for something to biodegrade, right? So it's the same thing as like, you got a banana, and I'm using one banana as an example, but obviously we're talking about, pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of food waste that's going into landfills. They're not breaking down, they're just rotting. And that creates methane, and that creates a problem because, then it goes into the atmosphere, and it creates a problem for all of us and for all the animals and for the planet. So just because something's biodegradable, if they don't have the conditions to biodegrade, if they don't have the conditions to compost, then they're just gonna sit there. And I just want to do the right thing for this rug. But I can't keep this rug. Like, I'm not going to keep using it. I can't. First of all, it's all mildewed already, and it's just a nightmare. So there you go. Right? I did the best I could. It was definitely a fail. If y'all want to write to me and tell me that like I shouldn't give it away or shouldn't throw it out or I shouldn't get rid of it, you can do that. But like, I can't. I have to get a different rug for this space that is going to be more conducive to the space and more conducive to the weather. So, that was annoying, and it cost money and it cost my time, but I learned. I definitely learned, right? Lessons and gifts. So I think sometimes of having a second podcast, or changing this name to Lessons and Gifts, because that's what this is. This is what life is. Okay. Another one that's really frustrating, just trying to do the right thing, are receipts at stores, right? Because receipts, by the way, if you don't know this, my husband the other day it's so cute that he didn't know this. It's so cute he didn't know this, because I swear I've told him this, but he's amazing. And the fact that he's even doing what he's doing is amazing. So I saw that he put a receipt from a store in our compost pail. And I said, no, you can't. You can't. There's plastic on this. And he's like, there's plastic on it? So yes, there is a coating on most receipts from stores, because they're made from a thermal paper, which contains a special coating that reacts to heat, because it's a thermal paper, right? So that's the idea. And so it allows the printing to occur without the need for ink. And so this coating often contains BPA or BPS, and they're plastic. And so the paper itself might technically be biodegradable, but the presence of these chemicals means that they wouldn't break down and they would be harmful to the environment. And then also, the thermal paper makes it so that they wouldn't be able to be recycled either because of the coating and also because of the small size of receipts. So some receipts I get at the store, they use that old school kind of receipt machine. And then you can tell that it's just like you can almost tell, right? It's like the paper with like a blue ink or something like that. You can kind of tell that it's like that old school receipt. But most that come from like these digital machines, like they're thermal. So some stores have started using alternative methods. Some of them use the recycled paper or paper with safer coatings. But really, the best thing to do is to ask for an electronic receipt or no receipt at all. The problem is often when they say, "Would you like a receipt?" It's while the thing is printing. And if you say no, they rip it out and they throw it out. So they're throwing it out. They're not recycling it. They're not composting it. It's just waste. So if you can get ahead of it, which is frustrating, it's just frustrating. It's like this stress, right? It's like, oh God, I forgot to tell them to not print the receipt. No, I don't need a receipt. So I'm seeing some changes. Like I was at the post office the other day, and when she finished the transaction, she said, "Would you like," or actually it was on the screen. And I said, I said, she was printing a receipt. And I said, "Is that your receipt or mine? Cause I don't need one." And she said, or, 'cause I can just do an electronic one. And she said, "No, that's mine. You can choose if you want a printed one or an electronic one." So I was like, "Oh, great." And my email was already there. It was already in the system. So I was able to just pick, yep, email, there's my email address. And yeah, it would have taken me a minute to like put my email address in. It was a lot longer when my email address was Colleen@compassionatecooks.com. And I'm so glad I don't use that anymore. So since I changed it to Colleen@joyfulvegan.com, it's a lot faster. So I put my email. So some of the systems are changing. I'm seeing it slowly changing, but it's just so frustrating. We do the best we can. So maybe the thing to do is with receipts is to, when we first come up to the counter, say, "By the way, I don't need a receipt. Can we not do a receipt, or hey, can I get an electronic receipt before you print it?" So, just doing it beforehand. Yeah, I know. It's annoying to think about those things. That's an example. I've already talked in the past about how I've asked for hot water for my tea thermos in cafes or in on the airplane when I have a thermos that's a refillable, reusable thermal thermos, stainless steel, and I ask for hot water and they have picked up a cup, which is a plastic lined cup, put the hot water in that, and then pour the hot water into my thermos. And it makes me apoplectic because the whole point was to not use a cup. And so then they just throw the cup out. And I'm like, "No, I'm not even gonna use," like, now we're not even now it's even worse because I'm not even using the cup, and I'll take the cup. Like, when that's happened, I'm like, "Give me the cup. I'll now use the cup because at least I can use it." Like, I can make it, like, worth you having, you know, use the cup to put the hot water in. So now I'm just more vigilant. When I ask for hot water in my thermos, I will make sure that it can fit under the little spigoty thing. And if it can't, like, I don't know, I'll just figure something else out. But I refuse to like get a cup for hot water that gets poured into my thermos. So yeah, it requires some vigilance. It requires, kind of being aware and being vigilant. Really frustrating. It's really annoying. And so now I get ahead of it, but those times when it happened, I was apoplectic. I'm like, "What? Why? That completely, do you see what you just did?" Anyway, number 4 would be pretty much anything related to the medical world. I give blood, have to get tests done, or I've gotten vaccines. And, you just go in there and the second, everything, you go to the dentist, everything is latex gloves, everything is medical waste, everything is just thrown out. It's just the most wasteful industry, probably. I would think like salons, I think are pretty, like hair salons, nail salons. Like I feel like there's a pretty high waste industry. The medical world is definitely a high waste industry. So there was one time I went to the dentist and she took a toothbrush out, used it to show me how to brush well or whatever. And she was about to throw it out. I'm like, "I will take that toothbrush. Like, I don't use plastic toothbrushes, but I will take that plastic toothbrush because now I'll use it." Like, that's ridiculous. She was about to just throw it out. She was just using it for demonstration purposes. But look, it is just the world we live in. I am not going to stop going to the dentist and I'm not going to stop going to the doctor. I'm not going to stop giving blood, but it's just something I have to live with. I also am kind of, in terms of my own well, it's not willful blindness, but in terms of my own, desire to try and feel better about it. I know there are organizations who are implementing solutions. I'm going to actually talk about some of them in a minute because I know there are incredible like organizations and people looking to implement solutions because I'm this isn't news to like, just me and nobody else. Like it's a thing. People know that it's an incredibly wasteful field. So there are people who are trying to solve that issue. And I'm really grateful for that. And that's true. It's not the area that I'm working in, but other people are working in that area. If you are in the medical field, I'll name a couple solutions below, but I mean, you can also reach out to me, but you can also research it. There are solutions to create less waste in the medical field, and I'm encouraged by that. But man, just going there and seeing everything, just just the gloves, just the latex gloves, just really painful, really painful. So I've mentioned, so number 5 is, kind of the experience of being in a place where there's food waste and I can't control it. And most of that is when I'm traveling. Most of that is when I'm, eating out or traveling. So, and I don't mean to throw my sister under the bus, but yeah, like it was really hard when I was in Florida. And so maybe I'd have to do the same thing I did when I was in New Jersey. It was really hard because there is no recycling, there is no composting, there's just so much garbage that just gets put in the can, and it's just overflowing, and food, and oh my god. It was painful. It was painful, and it's because I live in this world that I can control everything. It's just not the case all the time, right? Just like I was talking about with the medical industry. Like, I just don't live in that world. We don't live in the world where we can control everything all the time. I mean, I do in my world. I can control everything. Um, but I can't control it when I'm on the road necessarily. And so I just have to either find the solution, can I get her to change her way of being? No. I mean, probably not. And not if I'm visiting and I'm a guest and I leave and I'm asking someone to do something they're not really in a position to do or in a, mind space to do. I can mention it and I did, and if I could put the solutions in place for someone who's incredibly overwhelmed and busy and make it easy for them, then sure, I'll do that if they're willing to. But, it's just not always going to be the answer, right? And, and like I said, when I was in that Airbnb, it's just that that town doesn't have composting. So what was I going to do? So, next time I go visit my father and my sister and stay with her, sure, maybe ahead of time I'll see if there's a restaurant that does compost. There's actually a vegan restaurant in the same town, and I'm really thrilled. This is outside of Tampa in a town called Lutz, and there's a vegan restaurant there, and they're really all about kind of vegan and sustainability. So maybe I'll see if they have what they do with their food waste and see if I can hang on to the food waste until I can bring it to them and then have them, compost it or however they get rid of theirs. But yeah, it was really hard. It's not funny, just painful, just painful. There was one time, when I was out at a restaurant, this wasn't to do so much with, um, food, but I it was really funny because I ordered a cocktail. We were out with friends. It's like a couple years ago, by the way. I was keeping a journal in the beginning of my zero waste journey to just kind of note all of these things where I, tried and failed or where it was frustrating or funny or stupid. And so I ordered a cocktail that I thought was going to come in a coupe glass. So I ordered it without a straw. And now we're in California. It's illegal, like, plastic straws are illegal at this point, but I don't know, maybe it was before it was illegal, and I didn't know what they were gonna bring me, so I said, "No straw," but the cocktail came in a pint glass, and so I had to stir it, like, while I'm drinking. I think it was like a uh, not a mimosa, what do you call it? A mojito. So there's mint and there's things. I had to kinda stir it, so I didn't have a straw, like, so I had to, like, get my fork and straw it, like, and we were laughing because it was so stupid. Because I was just trying to do the right thing and not get a straw. But I had to, like, use a fork. It was just stupid. Now, it's just stupid. I just again, the world is gonna go on. There's bigger problems. I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing all these other things. That one, if I had had that one straw, it would have been okay, you know. But I just try. I can't help just trying to do the right thing. I just want to do the right thing. And so it's hard. I joke that it would be so much easier to not care. Of course it is, but I can't help it. And so, in trying to do the right thing, I just try to also have perspective because big picture, doing the best we can. I'm doing a lot big picture. So what is working? So what have I implemented since I started this journey? Now, I already mentioned that my mindset has shifted and kind of the questions I ask before I buy something has shifted. But like I said, a lot of the research I did up front, I'm still implementing. So I don't have to keep doing the research for certain things that I know where to go to or discard. I know how to get rid of something responsibly. I don't have to keep doing that research. So it's the same thing as when you become vegan. You change some habits, you learn some new products, you learn some new recipes, and those become second nature. That's really what has happened with the zero waste journey. So I will bring up one of the issues that you've probably heard me talk about, which was one of my challenges, one of my the things that I bumped up against. Now, for some people, it's going to be, I don't want to stop I don't know, I don't want to stop getting this product or this food or whatever, but I'm not getting, packaging for all of these other things. Like everybody has their thing. Mine was blueberries. And so I've talked about the blueberry, the blueberry issue. And it kind of became fun. It kind of became my touchstone of like, okay, where do I feel really challenged? Blueberries. So it's not just blueberries, it's frozen blueberries. I love frozen blueberries. I will eat 2 cups of frozen blueberries in a sitting. Sometimes it's just my lunch. I love it so much. And so what I do is I put a little bit of, I drizzle a little bit of agave. You can also drizzle a little bit of maple syrup. It's really good with maple syrup. Like maple syrup and blueberries go really well together. And as they start to slowly thaw, the texture is just like perfect. So I don't eat that many blueberries if they were fresh in a sitting, but the frozen ones I love. And so I used to get the frozen blueberries from Trader Joe's in the small bags. I don't know what they were, 8 ounces or something like that. And, you'd rip open that soft plastic, and that soft plastic is just going to a landfill. Nothing else to do about it. And so I felt terrible when I started this journey and I started looking at my own behavior. I was like, "Oh, I don't feel good about that." So I stopped eating blueberries. I stopped eating like one of my favorite things, right? I stopped eating frozen blueberries and in the meantime started looking at possible solutions. Now, of course, I can get blueberries sometimes in a little pint basket or in the grocery store. Maybe they'll be in a little basket or obviously the farmer's market. I eat mostly seasonally because I just eat what's at the farmer's market. So I know that blueberries are not there year round. So that's one thing. And I do like eating frozen blueberries year round, but fine. I also, don't eat strawberries year round. I eat strawberries when they're in season. I get flats of them. I eat them fresh, but I also freeze them. So, with blueberries, I could do the same thing, but blueberries are really expensive. They're so expensive. So if I were to try to get the equivalent amount of blueberries fresh from a farmer's market or grocery store that I would freeze in packaging that's sustainable, that's not plastic. I it just I'd go into debt. Like, I mean, it would just be so expensive. So I basically got strawberries, blueberries when I could, ate them when I could, and started looking for solutions. So I found a solution. And you may have heard me talk about this before, maybe on social media, but I found a solution and it's kind of amazing. Some of you may already know about this. So there's a company called Azure Standard, Azure, 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 why can't I say Azure, Azure, Azure Standard, Azure. Okay, it's Azure. I think it's Azure, Azure Standard. Um, and it is basically a distribution company. And distribution companies, distributors, usually work directly with restaurants, grocery stores, supermarkets, that kind of thing. And they sell large quantities of things, in bulk for, a lower cost than they're sold to retailer, to people like us, to retail price. So what Azure did was set up a system so that individuals like me, like you, can get this stuff in bulk. And I don't just mean like frozen fruit. I mean anything, name it, grains, legumes, lentils, you know, I don't know, glass cleaner, whatever, right? So all these things that are in larger quantities, in bulk, but for a lower price. And the way they do it is that they don't sell it directly and then like ship it to you. They basically enable individuals who place these orders on their website to meet the distribution truck, to meet the truck in a drop-off location and get your goods and then bring them home. So it's kind of hilarious. And David, has gone to meet the truck a couple times. And he's like, I feel like I'm doing like a drug deal because you're like meeting this, massive truck, this delivery truck, like on the side of the freeway. Basically, there used to be a company, there's a zero waste store here in Oakland called Refill. And they used to be a drop off location for the Azure standard truck. So when they had more of a warehouse space, but now they have more of a retail space. So they can't be a drop off. It's just, there's no space for a truck to pull over on the road. So, so they don't do it anymore. So now, luckily there's still a drop off location, and there's like a volunteer who volunteers to be the point person for people like me. So I place the order through Azure website. And when I say place the order, I'm talking, you can get them in 5-pound boxes. I get 30 pounds. So you can get them in 5-pound boxes. You can get them in 30-pound boxes. I get 30 pounds of blueberries at a time and I eat them in like a month because I love them. And so what happens is we meet the truck, they have my name, they have my order. I've already paid for it. We show up and it's like, and like all the boxes are kind of like piled out on the sidewalk, and people just show up, they pull up because the time the truck is going to be there. You're just like there for like a half-hour long window, like a 30-minute window. There's not a huge window. So you show up and you're like, "Oh, that's my box of blueberries. That's my name on it. Yep. Great. Hi. Thanks so much. Okay, bye-bye." And I bring them home. So it's pretty awesome. Yes, the lengths I go to. And so, but then what that means is I have this massive bag of blueberries, and the price is basically either the same or cheaper. I've actually priced it out. I think it's cheaper per ounce than the Trader Joe's bag of blueberries, which were pretty cheap at one time. I think they were $1.99, but they've gone up because I was doing this kind of pricing. And I think it's definitely less expensive to do the system I'm doing because there's no delivery fee. You meet the truck. So is there a plastic bag still? Yes, but it's a big plastic bag. It's almost like a garbage, the size of a garbage pail liner, right? It's that big. Not an outdoor garbage pail, but like, an indoor garbage, trash pail. And so it's thicker. And what that means is I can reuse that bag for many, many, many things over and over and over again. So I put that bag, I have a drawer in my freezer. It fits in perfectly. And oh man, it is the best. I scoop out my blueberries. I eat my blueberries and I'm really happy. Now, someone else might be like, that is ridiculous. I am not going through that. I'm going to keep getting the Trader Joe's bags, and you can do that. That's fine. Everybody has their lines. For me, it was just like again, it was kind of an adventure. It was kind of a challenge. It was kind of a fun challenge, and I wanted to see how far I had to go or could go. And clearly I'm willing to do that. And my husband is willing to do it too. He's a superhero. So that's one thing, and it works for me, and I'm really thrilled. And there's not a lot. I mean, what else do I get from Azure? I get frozen cherries. They have frozen cherries, which are so good. And David loves getting frozen strawberries. We get a lot of frozen strawberries during the summer months from the farmers market, and we just get flats and flats, and we freeze those. So I'm fine doing that with the strawberries, but the cherries are awesome. And so there's nothing better than a blueberry cherry smoothie. Yeah. 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 So that works for me. I think I've mentioned in other episodes, because I have a whole episode of like how zero waste changed my eating. And so I have other episodes so I may have even told you this whole story about the blueberry. Sorry about that. But I may have told you about like, I figured out which grocery stores near us where we have to get supplemental produce that I don't get at the farmer's market. I figured out which ones have carrots in bulk that I don't have to get in the plastic bag of carrots. I know the grocery stores and they're all close to me. So I know where to go to get those. right? I know where, I know if I go to Whole Foods, to be honest, cauliflower is going to be wrapped in plastic. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I get my cauliflower from the farmer's market, but carrots, because I get a lot of carrots because I make a lot of carrot juice. I eat a lot of carrots. So I get those in bulk. I bring a bag, I put the carrots in the bag. So you just kind of figure out your systems and then you just move forward. I still make a lot from scratch. A lot. I mean, most everything from scratch. I make our milks from scratch, our plant milks. I make our sausages from scratch. I make our seitan from scratch. I make my tofu from scratch. I make I make the carrot juice and then I make burgers from the pulp left over, which are delicious. I make like carrot beet ginger burgers, which are fantastic. I make a lot of stock, of veggie stock, because I have veggie scraps all the time. So again, value and use. Oh my God, you have all those veggie scraps? The best way to value those veggie scraps are to make, or is to make stock. There's who's the Instagrammer? She just came out with a book. I'm blanking on her name, and I'm blanking on her Instagram handle, but she does a lot of recipes with vegetable scraps. And of course, there's a lot you can do for sure. And I just tend to make a lot of vegetable stock and then I freeze them. So that's something I'm still doing. I definitely, bumped that up. I have always loved making things from scratch, but I definitely bumped things up since going zero waste. David is now kind of experimenting with coffee. He's experimenting with coffee. Just so weird to have coffee in my house. But he's experimenting with coffee and that's requiring him to he's buying cashew milk and that comes of course in those the plastic containers that aren't really recyclable, to be honest. But I told him if he's going to keep doing that, I'll make cashew milk for him so we can just get cashew because he likes cashew milk the most for frothing his latte. I don't even know what I'm saying. Words are coming out of my mouth. I don't even know what I'm saying because I don't drink coffee and I don't froth my latte, whatever that means. So, again, yes, he's getting some packaging. We're getting some packaging. I don't mean to make it sound like it's just David. We'll buy some things too. Like for Christmas, we bought some veggie dogs because I wanted to make pigs in a blanket, veggie pigs in a blanket. And so, it's not perfect, but for the most part, I'm making things from scratch. I will say the biggest thing that has changed that I probably mentioned in that episode that has remained is that there is zero food waste in our home. There is zero food. What am I trying to say? No food goes into the garbage. No food goes into the garbage and doesn't go into our garbage disposal in our sink either. No food goes in. We put everything, any food waste, any food scraps after I make the veggie stock. Of course, I still have all of the wet scraps now that, we took all the flavor out of. They all go in the compost. The only food that goes down that garbage disposal is any leftover cat food that the cats don't eat because they eat only wet food. And so that's the only thing that will go down the garbage disposal. None of our food goes in. And that was the biggest change. That was one of the biggest changes because I didn't realize. I was like, I was putting food in the garbage. And that's why the garbage stinks. And that's why you have all these human animal conflicts because raccoons are going to be attracted to your garbage cans and then they're going to knock over your cans and you're going to be frustrated. Like it's so stupid. We put food in garbage. Food is not garbage. And so I know that not everybody has that option. I do think it's going to keep changing. I think more and more cities are going to implement compost, kind of pick up curbside composting. And, I've already talked about other solutions. You can compost yourself. There's lots more solutions for being able to do this in your own home or your apartment. But I will say that was definitely like the biggest change and that remains. And I still bring food scraps home with me when we have road trips. When we do our counties, when we travel anywhere that's a road trip, yeah. When we go, we bring compostable bags or I have a bowl or whatever that goes in the freezer of wherever we're staying. And our road trips, when we do domestic road trips, they're only 2 or 3 days long. So it's not like it's a ton, but it will be some veggie scraps and I will keep them in the freezer. And then, couple hour drive home or a few hours or whatever it is, get home, drop them in our compost here at home. Why not? Why not? Doesn't take much more for me to do that. And that's something that David really adjusted to because he's like, so there's garbage in the back of my car when we're driving. And of course, it's an exaggeration because it's not garbage, it's food scraps. And it's not garbage, it's actually nutrients for the soil. So, but he's amazing. Clothing, I think, shifted for me too. I am not someone who likes to shop. I am not someone who likes to shop in thrift stores. I have no patience for those for that kind of thing. So I used to shop at the Gap because I loved the Gap because it's like, oh, here are the sweaters in four different colors. Here are the shirts in four different colors. Here are the jackets in four different colors. Here are the socks. Like I just like that. I like things easy and simple. I know it doesn't sound like I do because I just explained these hoops that I will jump through. But when it comes to clothing, I don't like spending time weeding through things, and I admire anyone who does. I wish I had that gene. I don't have that gene, so I don't go to thrift stores. But I did start using ThredUp, which is basically a secondhand online store, and I can even like search for brands. So I could even like search for Gap clothes because I do like just very simple clothes. You've seen me. I have had clothes. I've had some of the same clothes for 15 years. Like I was looking at some pictures the other day from some trips from like 15 years ago. And I'm like, oh my God, I still wear that shirt. Like I still have that shirt, which is great. It means that it was pretty good quality that I'm still wearing it. I do have some shirts. I do need to replace some shirts. I have some plain black shirts, mostly black. I wear black a lot. And they all have holes at the bottom because whenever I've picked up my cats or they're sitting on my lap and they jump off, their little back claws puts a little hole in my cotton shirt. So I do replace some of these shirts. I like them. I like the shirts and they're still in my closet. I'll still wear them, kind of when I'm here at home, but I need to replace those. But I'll use ThredUp. So it's basically a secondhand online store. There's actually a physical store for ThredUp in downtown Oakland, which is cool. I'm sure I could bring clothes in there, but I haven't sold to ThredUp. I've just bought from ThredUp, and it's great. And then I'll also buy clothing from sustainable retailers. So I will do research of clothing makers, dressmakers that are sustainable. So Toad and Company, Veta, I think closed, but there's another one I use. I'm trying to remember. There's other ones I use. And that's for all of my clothing. It's for socks, it's for undergarments, it's for everything. I will look for companies that have sustainable practices. So that did change for me. The way I shop, even though I hate shopping, the way I shop for clothes has changed. I want things that are going to be long lasting. I want things that are good quality. I want things that have been sustainably made. I want things that are using fabrics that are, the leftover fabric. So I am focusing more on that. And it does mean that it costs a little bit more for some of these things, but it means they last longer, right? So the Gap, they don't last very long. They don't last very long. That's the point. And I don't want to support practices that are not aligned with my values. So I'll do that. I do also buy from small boutiques. So, they tend to have, kind of more boutique brands, like just more smaller dressmaker brands. And so a lot of people see me in different dresses when I'm on my trips because my hairstylist, where I go to get my hair done, she's also a boutique owner. So she always has the most beautiful dresses from like local, well, not local, but from, kind of small run factories, let's say. And so I will often get a dress from her when I go to get my hair done or a skirt or something. And so, like, I'm just being more mindful of that. So that's definitely changed. As much as we try, there were some I was trying at one point a couple years ago, and I tried to implement this with David. It was harder for David, I think, to not buy things online. And it was because mostly of the packaging. Now, I will buy some of these sustainable clothing that I mentioned or ThredUp online, and most of them have sustainable packaging. Some don't. Some don't. And I was trying to get ahead of it with some places. I would ask in advance, can you make sure it doesn't come in plastic? Even Amazon, there was a time when I would place an order, I would reach out to customer service and say, hey, just placed an order. Can you make sure it's in a box and not in plastic? And they would put that in my account, but really it would only last for that order. It didn't stick. And so it was hard. I can't spend my whole freaking life calling, Amazon customer service. So I tried to get ahead of it and it wasn't happening. And so I would say, while we do order online different things, and we do order from Amazon as well, and other companies, I would say about 50 to 60% of the packages are cardboard boxes, which of course we can compost and or recycle. But when they would show up in plastic envelopes, I still lament. It really hurts my heart because, like, it's just this freaking soft plastic that I know is not recyclable. And the bubble wrap that's in things that are that need to be protected, that are breakables, it just hurts my heart. So I found another solution. And I am so thrilled about it. There are two solutions. So I am going to share these with you. I'm so excited about these because I feel like they kind of shored up, like using these systems shored up kind of the final frontier for me of waste, which is really soft plastic. It's soft plastic. So it's either getting those veggie dogs that I mentioned, right? Or it's getting this packaging if we order something online. And you could say never order something online again. Okay. It's still not going to keep these things out of my life. It just happens. Even some of the sustainable clothing companies, I remember some of the dresses were wrapped in plastic. So it's not going to be perfect. So I'd rather have solutions for those times when it's not perfect than not. So I'm going to tell you about those right now. Before I continue, I have to say thank you to everybody who is supporting this podcast. You are making it possible to keep it ad-free. You're making it possible to keep going. I have some angels and some heroes I want to thank. Please forgive me if I have left anybody out. But number one, my angels, Risa Ribakov and Brooke Boussard, thank you so much for your incredible support over the years. It's just amazing. Thank you also to all of my heroes, Nancy Leeds Gribble, Simon Small, Angelica Lofton, Jennifer Statmiller, PJ Schuster, Tina Atwell, Elizabeth D, Liz D, and Ranjini Mohan. And if these names are familiar to you, it's because these people continue to be heroes. And if you'd like to add to that list, please consider becoming a hero. Please consider becoming an angel. Please consider becoming an enthusiast, a champion, a superstar, a benefactor. There's so many different levels. And if everybody just threw in $5, $10, whatever it is, I'm looking at possibly moving to a membership model. I just think there's ways to continue to do what I'm doing in terms of putting value out there and you being able to put value back to me, value for value in a way that might be different. I don't know yet. But for now, if there's anything you can do to be part of that list, I would be most grateful. So you can go to patreon.com/Colleen Patrick-Goudreau, or you could just go to joyfulvegan.com and you can see the donate button there, and that will give you a couple options. You can also make a one-time donation, but you can also become a monthly supporter. And if you choose the annual level, or the annual payment, that enables me to get your support right up front and not have to worry about your credit card declining, because that's a huge issue for this. So if you are going to be a $10 a month supporter, for instance, you can just pay up front and you actually get a discount if you pay that whole year up front. And that helps me and it helps you. Okay, thank you so much. So let's talk about some of these systems that I've put in place that total game changers. So I'm going to talk about one that might not be available to you right now, but then I'm going to talk about another one that is available to everybody. So there's a new service called Ridwell that I heard about a couple years ago and found out that it was in my area about a year ago. So I'm using them now and they are amazing. So what Ridwell does is kind of fill in the gap for the harder to recycle items. And they've created a pickup service. So they're a home pickup service for subscribers, and their subscription fee is very low. It's very reasonable. So you basically receive a Ridwell container, like a metal container. It reminds me of like one of those old milk containers, like a bin that you keep outside. And then inside are bags, really cute little, they have a really nice branding. I really like their branding. So you have these canvas bags that you fill up each week with items that are designated by the bag. So plastic film is one. What is the other one? Multi-layer plastic, light bulbs, clothing, and then there's a featured bag. So what that means is throughout the week, as we get the bubble wrap, as we get the plastic, envelopes, as we have the veggie hot dogs or whatever that, that's just there, they go into what do they go into? Those would go into the plastic film. And then if it's something like a potato chip bag, which we don't get a lot of potato chip bags, but like, let's say it's a potato chip bag, or David bought me for Christmas chocolate, Cho chocolate, which is the best chocolate. And they just went completely vegan. They were mostly vegan before, but they're completely vegan. Their chocolate is amazing. And if you're in the Bay Area, you can go on their tour, their chocolate tour, which is fabulous. And so, this is like good vegan, sustainable chocolate that supports their chocolate growers, their cocoa growers. I want to support this company. And the little bars are wrapped in plastic. Well, those candy bar wrappings can go into the multi-layer plastic bag. And then the kind of the envelope they sit in, for me, I just put those in the compost because it's just cardboard. Hi, that's a game changer. So now, the stuff just winds up in my life. As much as I try to be zero waste, as much as I make things from scratch, as much as I'm meeting trucks on the side of the road to get my blueberries, there's just going to be times where I have plastic. And so I have been using Ridwell and they're amazing. And I will tell you, I know you're going to think I'm crazy. Maybe at this point you won't think I'm crazy. When we were away, we were in Europe, we were in Switzerland, and I can't wait to do my Switzerland podcast episode for you. We were in Alsace, we were in Germany. I brought some things back home because I knew I could put them in my Ridwell bag. So they weren't like, wasn't like a ton of things, but there were some chip bags, like there was some soft plastic, and I brought them back home because I knew I can put them in the Ridwell bag. I've used the clothing bag. So David had a bunch of socks he didn't need anymore. And I will still use Buy Nothing. Like I'm still putting things on Buy Nothing, which I love, but no one wanted the socks. So those socks went into the clothing bag. And Ridwell then partners with different companies who are able to very, responsibly take care of or redistribute or properly recycle the items in these different bags. They have a light bulbs bag, like I said, and we don't have a lot of light bulbs that go in there, but like we have one now, like one's waiting. But the featured category is really cool because it's different every week. So when they write to you and say, hey, do you want the bag picked up tomorrow, whatever it is, or they give you a few days. And if so, here's the featured category. Here's the featured category, and that featured category is different. One was jewelry, one was like plastic bottle caps, like the tops of bottle caps, because that's a different kind of plastic, that hard plastic, right? One that's coming up is Christmas lights. Whether they work or they don't work. How many of us have strings of lights from Christmas and those lights stop working? Well, Ridwell will take them. And then they work with different partners to make sure that everything's disposed of properly. Like it's amazing. So I'm so thrilled to be using them. They're not everywhere. It's growing all the time. They're growing all the time, but they are in Atlanta, Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Austin, Texas, the San Francisco Bay Area, Denver, Colorado, Los Angeles, California, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. And if you're in any of these areas, or if you know people who are in these areas who would like to try it out, you can try it out for 30 days. Reach out to me directly at colleen@joyfulvegan.com. I will give you a link and you will be able to use that link to try Ridwell for 30 days free. You can also go to the show notes. I'll put it in the show notes and I'll put it at joyfulvegan.com on the show notes for today's episode at joyfulvegan.com, or you can just reach out to me directly. But you can get that special link and you'll get it for free for 30 days and you'll be able to experience it. I've put it out to my neighbors, and a number of neighbors accepted my offer, and I can't wait to see Ridwell bins all around. So they're wonderful, but obviously they're local and they pick up. So it's not going to work for everybody, and they're not in every city. So the other option that I would just remind you of, and you've probably heard of them before, but let me just explain a little bit more of how they work, and that's TerraCycle. So TerraCycle also, their aim is to divert waste from landfills. And so they also have recycling solutions where they have partnerships. I don't know exactly how they have the setup, but they work with a lot of brands. They work with a lot of brands who sponsor the proper recycling, TerraCycle's proper recycling of their products. So I'll explain. So kind of think of it the way Ridwell works as well. Like you have all these different kinds of plastic, right? All these different things. You have flexible packaging, this soft plastic, you have coffee capsules, you have toothpaste tubes, you have chip bags, you have chocolate bar wrappers. I mean, you have just so many different things. And the way TerraCycle works is two different things. They have something called zero waste boxes, and then they have these free recycling programs. So the zero waste boxes, I've been using one of the zero waste boxes for years, but the zero waste boxes cost money to buy the box. So let's say, for example, you want to buy the box that Bausch and Lomb, it's a Bausch and Lomb contact lens disposal recycling box. $150. You fill that up with like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of blister packs from contact lenses. And when that's filled, you just send it to TerraCycle. Now, what happens is a lot of companies, well, depending on what the box is, will sponsor a box. So, for instance, my optometrist used to sponsor a box for the blister packs, right? Contact lenses and the blister packs. And I was thrilled. So I would show up with like a massive box, like a huge box, because I just collect them. And my husband also has dailies. We both have dailies. And so I would collect these blister packs, and when the box was so full, I would then bring that over to the optometrist and drop them off. And then they would send those back to TerraCycle. Well, my optometrist retired, and then a new person bought the business, and they stopped doing it. So, okay, let me look online, and you can look on TerraCycle. Who else sponsors a drop off? Oh, turns out David's optometrist does, and they're in Oakland. They're not far from us. Okay, great. So one time David dropped off everything to that optometrist, and yay, that was going to be my plan. Well, I went back to my optometrist yesterday, and lo and behold, they're sponsoring the box again. So when I go, I have to go pick up some new contact lenses, and I will bring a massive box of blister packs. So that's an example of a kind of zero waste box they have. They have like a hair salon zero waste box. So if you're in that industry, you could even sponsor one. They have medical waste ones. So if you're in the medical industry, you could sponsor one. I think there was one for like latex gloves. I remember during the height of the pandemic, they were doing that. So that's really cool. You can also sponsor one yourself, and like you can go in on a box with friends or neighbors, and like, maybe a box is $150 or $100, but again, whatever it is, it's going to fill up a lot of whatever that waste is. And then, you split it. So maybe you pay $25 if you split it with 3 other people. So you can sponsor a box too. You don't have to just be a company, which is really cool. They have one for action figures. They have so many. They have one for rigid plastic cups. There's like red, rigid plastic cups you see often at events. They have one for art supplies. They have one for automotive small parts. They have automotive small parts. They have one for backpacks. They have one for binders. They have one for beauty products. They have a lot. Okay. So that's the zero waste boxes. But then they also have these free recycling services, these free programs. And I've used these, and I'm starting to use more again because I just revisited their website in anticipation of and research for this episode. And their website is a lot more vegan friendly than it used to be. And I'm thrilled with what I found. So go over to their website. You can see, again, you'll see the zero waste boxes, but then also look at the recycling services, the free recycling programs they have. The way the free recycling programs work, there's 2 ways to, for free, send or give your items to TerraCycle. One is a program that you sign up for, that you join, and TerraCycle gives you a free shipping label. I think it's through UPS, and you can put whatever you have in whatever, box, envelope, and you put that label on, and then you just bring it to a UPS store. So it's free. The other option is that there are drop-off locations. Now, I mentioned the Bausch and Lomb. That I know that one is a paid one. They don't have well, that's not true. I shouldn't say that. I think there are free options for companies. So yeah, look into that too, because I think there were also contact lens solution ideas in the free recycling one. So again, you can just find out. Doesn't matter. The point is, you find out what's near you. You just put in your address, your zip code, and you find out what a drop-off location is. So let me give you some examples of this. So I just found out that there's one called Nordstrom Beauty Cycle. Okay, so that's what they call theirs. So Nordstrom sponsors this. And so there's no cost to you. And I looked it up, and there's a Nordstrom rack near me. I don't even know. I don't shop at Nordstrom, but there's a Nordstrom rack near me that has a drop-off location for their beauty cycle, this is also really key. You can recycle all brands of beauty and skincare product packaging, and they're very specific. And the FAQs for any of these programs you click on, it says, does it have to just be Nordstrom brand? Does it have to just be Tom's of Maine, for instance, for toothpaste? In some cases, yes, it's just brand specific, but in some cases, no. So for the Nordstrom beauty cycle, they recycle all brands of beauty. They take mascara tubes and wands, they take tubes and caps, they take bottles and caps, they take jars and caps, and they take compacts. So how cool is that? Now I do have some like makeup packaging before I went over to my zero waste brand, which is Elate, which is like mostly metal, glass, and bamboo. But I have some things, and not all, and even with Elate, the mascara wands are plastic. So I still have things that are plastic that I could bring. So I'm psyched. So when I kind of accumulate enough, I will just go to Nordstrom Rack and I can drop things off. Saks has one as well. I looked up on TerraCycle and I'm on the wait list for that. So if you join one, in this case, you can join this one, which is either a drop off location or you get a free shipping label. Sometimes these programs are full, so you have to get on a wait list. So fine, whatever. So I joined, I think, the Nordstrom one. And that's just a drop off. But I joined the Saks one that has a wait list, but they do have a drop off location, but they also have the free shipping label. And they also, for theirs, for the Saks program, they take lipstick packaging, lip gloss packaging, and lip balm packaging. So I'm like, that's cool. Because I do have those little lip balms. I have lip balms in every pocket of any jacket I have. And so like Tom's of Maine is another example. Tom's of Maine is any brand for toothpaste tubes. And we do have toothpaste tubes still, especially when the dentist gives us a bag, and I try not to get it, but we still have some toothpaste, even though I am using and finding, we're still looking for the right zero waste toothpaste, like little tablets. And I think I found one that I really like. That's also really that's more economical. I found that Bite that I was using was pretty expensive. But so if we do keep getting, and David like needs the sensitive toothpaste. So if we still have to keep getting Tom's of Maine tube, well, I actually am already enrolled in, registered for Tom's of Maine, and it's all brands. It's all brands. So it doesn't have to just be, even though we do use Tom's of Maine toothpaste and floss, they also accept floss packets. So it's just shoring up these other little areas. And I'm doing the research for you, so you don't have to be overwhelmed. I'm telling you to go over to TerraCycle and see which programs you can get into. Here's something that's really cool. I'll tell you one last story about this. I had this weird thing when we were in Alsace. Some of you may remember if you're listening. I know you're listening, Allie. I was kind of like, it was like I was breaking out on the sides of my nose. Like it was very red and a little, just I was breaking out. And I've never had that before. I've never broken out before. I didn't change my diet. Nothing changed. I figured it was maybe some of it was the cold, but it had been going on for like a month or two. And I would put like, I thought it was at first, I know I put different things on it. Nothing was working. And so I started doing some research about what it could possibly be. And it seemed like it could be possibly hormone related because y'all know I'm 53 and I'm officially in menopause. And so there's, hormone related things that are happening. Yay. Things, not fun, things happening. And so it looked like it could have been hormone related breakout. And so I looked at what are the solutions for that. And it's a particular kind of acid. What is it? Salicylic acid or something like that. And so I looked at products that were obviously cruelty free and no animal products. And I found one with lots of good reviews for a product they had that was specific to kind of like spot reducing a problem like this. And so I found this company called Paula's Choice. Never heard of them in my life. Never heard of them in my life. And I don't use all these special creams and things. I really don't. I just use like very simple like face moisturizer from like plain products. Like I don't get fancy things. But I got this from Paula's Choice and it came in a little plastic tube. But oh my God, it has done the trick. It has worked. It has not completely. It's like 80% dissipated the red and the breakout. So I am thrilled about that. And I actually went to their website to say like, yeah, let me go see. I'll get some other kinds of moisturizer. I'll get some other things because I think this was really good for my face and it was really good. I want to prevent anything else. So I ordered a couple more things and I found that when I was ordering, So I saw this on the TerraCycle site, but I found this on their site. They partner with TerraCycle, and they're brand specific. I think their program with them, their recycling program with them, but I don't care because I'm using Paula's Choice. So now the Paula's Choice packaging that I'm getting, because I don't want to have this freaking outbreak on my nose, on the sides of my nose, I can now at least send those items back to TerraCycle, and they will be recycled. And then one more thing that was super fun. However much we tell, there's a Chinese, vegan Chinese ghost kitchen that we order from. If you're in the Bay Area, it's called, oh my gosh, what's it called? What's it called? It's called Cozy Walk. It's called Cozy Walk, and they have just really good food. It's kind of like California Chinese cuisine. So I'm not a huge fan of Chinese cuisine, but it's like a California Chinese cuisine, and it's called Cozy Walk. And we love them, and we'll get, they have like a vermicelli noodle with broccoli that I love. They have these tofu, salt and pepper tofu puffs, which are ridiculously delicious. And no matter how many times we tell them not to give us a soy sauce pack, they give us the soy sauce pack. Well, there is a Taco Bell sauce packet free recycling program at TerraCycle, and they accept all brands and all types of sauce packets. So now when this happens, and we do get, Cozy Walk, I don't know, once a week, once every 2 weeks. David is 100% remote, and his company gives him a small budget to like order in food each month. So we will get Cozy Walk, and all of their packaging is all compostable. We can put all of the packaging in the compost, the city compost. But these packets, these soy sauce packs, we keep them in the fridge, and we use them. But of course, if we use them, then there's going to be an empty plastic soy sauce packet. Now I can at least, kind of hang on to them, rinse them out a bit, and save them until I have enough to send them to the Taco Bell sauce packet free recycling program through TerraCycle. So it's really awesome. There's like wellness that's brand specific. So if you use wellness for your dog or cat food, Swiffer, which I don't know how to use a Swiffer. I don't have a Swiffer, but Swiffer and that brand specifically, you can send back the Swiffer thing. It's amazing. It's amazing. So go check out TerraCycle, go check out Ridwell, and, and see if you can use this in your life. I feel like it's just shored this up. Now, I know there's an argument that if you use companies like TerraCycle or Ridwell, you would then feel justified, kind of like what we were talking about in the beginning. You might feel justified buying more things in plastic because you can, I'll just send them to TerraCycle, or just send them to Ridwell. It's kind of like the idea of people wish cycling, when they just put everything in the recycling bin, anything that has a recycling symbol on it, even though that recycling symbol means absolutely nothing. And it just makes people feel like, well, it's going to happen because I'm putting it in the recycling bin, right? That's called wish cycling, that we just think if we put it in the recycling bin because it has a recycling symbol on it, that it's going to get recycled. No, that's not how it works, right? And so, is there a risk for that to happen, that if you use something like Ridwell or TerraCycle, that means you buy more things in plastic? I mean, sure, that could happen, but I would just say, be honest. I have bought plastic tofu in the vacuum packed packaging a couple times, because I can put that in the Ridwell bag, and that makes me happy. And I do still make my tofu from scratch. But again, like weighing everything I do, that's pretty small, but at least I know I can put it in the Ridwell bag. But I'm not like doing it a ton. I'm not like doing it for everything. I'm not going to start getting the plastic bags from from Trader Joe's for my frozen blueberries. I'm going to keep meat in the truck on the side of the road, right? So I'm, you just do the best you can, right? I'm not perfect. It's not about perfect. And it's also not about being so self-sacrificing that you're miserable, right? That's not the point of this. The point, and the reason I call myself a joyful vegan, is because I derive a lot of joy and pleasure from living this way. But I'm not going to, I don't want to be miserable, even though you might think in some of these stories I've told you that like I've made things miserable, but I do the best I can, right? And so that's Ridwell, that's TerraCycle, and I'm still using Buy Nothing. And then the last things I would say, this went on long. This is a long podcast episode. Okay, fine. Well, you're just going to have to just stay with me till the end. So the last couple of things I would say that really has been implemented in my life, and that is a part of my life now, is kind of decluttering. I think I say this a lot related to being vegan. We have a perception of ourselves and then there's reality. My perception of myself, and David too, we're very clean people. We don't have a lot of stuff. We don't buy a lot of stuff. We don't shop just for the sake of it. We don't have tchotchkes all around. We don't have, attics full of stuff that we don't know what we're going to do with. And yet, when I started looking at what I could do better, I thought, oh God, there's a lot we could do better. Right. And so then I also read this book. If you looked at my list of books I read in 2023, and you can find that at joyfulvegan.com, you would have seen that I read a book called The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning: How to Free Yourself and Your Family from a Lifetime of Clutter. It's written by a woman named Margareta Magnusson. And she wrote another one called, what is it? I don't know, something else. And it's meant to be a little kind of tongue in cheek and and fun and playful. And it's cute. It's cute. I liked this one more than the other book that she wrote. But it's referring to the practice of decluttering. It's a Swedish practice of decluttering and organizing one's belongings to make things easier for loved ones after you die. And I was drawn to it because that has been my concept. I mean, I have said for years that when I die, I don't want people to have to like just hire a dump truck and just dump all of my belongings into a dump truck and then go to the landfill. I want there to be what's left behind. I mean, there's going to be some things that get thrown away. It's just inevitable. But I want the things that are left in my home to be things of value that people want, maybe family members, maybe friends, I don't know, have an estate sale, right? Family, I don't know, whatever. So that they're going to go and they're going to have another life. I don't want people to have to be like, oh my God, it's going to take me weeks and weeks to go through her stuff. I don't want to leave that responsibility, burden really, to anybody who is left behind when I die. And David feels the same way. Now I'm leading this charge, but even though David feels the same way, and we're both, pretty good at this stuff, but I'm leading this charge. So I'm just still giving stuff away to buy nothing. I'm culling things. I'm, now that I can, give Christmas lights that don't work to buy nothing to Ridwell, at least that's not sitting in a box cluttering things up. So I'm still doing that. I'm still clearing things out because I know what it's like for family members to have to just, spend weeks like going through stuff and throwing things out. And there's lots of things that you wouldn't think people needed. I had like a 40-foot corrugated drainage pipe that I got from neighbors, from our neighbors years ago because I thought we'd be able to use it for our gray water system. It didn't help. And in the end, it was sitting kind of along this hillside I can see that I'm looking at it right now, the boxwood along this hillside on the side of our house, and just kind of was on the ground, and it was just sitting there for years. So I put it on Buy Nothing, and people took it. They couldn't wait. They needed it for a hill. We live in, an area where there's lots of people who live on hills. And so they needed it for drainage for their hill. And it was fantastic. Now I remember saying something to my contractor who we're friends with, and he said, it's funny because this is exactly the opposite of zero waste mentality. Our contractor said, no, I don't want it because it's so cheap. I can find it anywhere. Right. And I was like, no, the point is that I have it here for you. Like right. But that's the mentality we have, is that when things are just so cheap and available, we don't value that well, here it is. You could have this one for free and it's already here. I had so for those of you who have stepped up and purchased, well, not purchased copies, but paid for the shipping of several copies of the 30-Day Vegan Challenge, thank you. And there's still opportunity. I wrote to the publisher to ask how many are left. So just short story for those people who don't know what I'm talking about. My book, The 30-Day Vegan Challenge, is sitting in a fulfillment house, and the publisher who owns the rights to that book, they just don't want to pay for the book because it's not moving, it's not selling, not really. And so they want to just recycle it all. And that's just painful. And so a lot of people have stepped up, thanks to everybody who has, and stepped up to get copies that they can distribute. So most people have gotten 100 copies. Some people got 50. Some people got 200 or more. And so I got a few hundred. I can't take them all, because I don't have room for it, but I did take a few hundred. And so I think there's probably so there were 2,300, I think, originally. And I think maybe now there's about 800 left. I'm waiting for the count. But if you are interested, all you're paying for is the shipping. And in the end, the shipping could be $100, $150. It depends on how many books you get. It depends on where you are. But people are paying for that shipping. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then they have 100 books, and then they can just distribute them. They can give them to neighbors, friends. They can put them in libraries. They can bring them to organizations, sanctuaries, etc. So if you are interested in doing that and you want to help move the rest of these books off the shelf so that they don't get pulped, because I don't know how much longer they're going to let them stay on the shelf, please reach out to me and just say, yeah, I'll take 50 copies, or yes, I can spend $100, right? Or I'll spend $200, and I'll make sure those books get out of that shelf and into my hands, and I can give them away. Then just reach out to Colleen at joyfulvegan.com. So the story is, I got a bunch of books, and now they came on a pallet, those wood pallets, and those wood pallets are expensive. They're valuable. And so it was in our garage for not a long time. Very quickly, I was like, I don't want these sitting in my garage. Put it on Buy Nothing. And a guy wanted that pallet right away. So he came and picked it up. Yay. And then also, I will tell you this, one of David's Christmas presents for me came late because he didn't want it to come when we were away. But it has arrived since we got home. He got me a box of Rebel cheese. If you guys have not tried Rebel cheese, it's the best cheese on the market. And I've known this, and then it turns out they were just on Shark Tank. Their cheese is amazing, better than any cheese on the market. And yes, you know what brand I'm talking about. Better than that, 100% better than that. And that brand is also still good. I like it, whatever. And none of these are cheap. They're all, they cost money to make really good cheese with cashews. But oh my God, try it. They're based out of Texas. You can order a box. So David got some Rebel cheese for me, but of course they come with cold packs. And I put that on Buy Nothing as well. Now, in the end, I don't know if Ridwell would take them. I could ask Ridwell. And that's the company, by the way, I wrote to them and asked them about the rug, and if they have any resources that might want the fibers from this rug that I'm lamenting over. But I could write to them and ask them if they would take the cold packs, but I put them on Buy Nothing. And the same guy who wanted the pallet took the cold packs. So, just we do the best we can. I'll tell you one more thing that has definitely changed, and that is junk mail. I did a whole podcast episode on junk mail and how to reduce it. And it does take time, but I'll tell you, once you do it and you take, 5 minutes a day to like make a call, to send an email, to get off the credit card list, it has substantially reduced our junk mail. I'm seeing it kind of come up a little bit, especially with catalogs. I'm going to write to the catalog, tell them to take me off the list, and then I'll go down again. Wow. Changed immense, like super, 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 super reduced. So I'm thrilled about that. And we're fixing things more. David has stepped up and he's fixing things more, which is adorable. So it's really cool. So we do the best we can. And I just wanted to share all that with you because I'm still on this journey. It has shifted some things in my life. I've made, some concessions, but for the most part, I'm still trying to do the best I can. Aspiring to do this has definitely made me a more conscious consumer. It's definitely made my house less cluttered. I just get things out. I could sell these things too, but I just put them on Buy Nothing because I'd just rather just, have someone else have them, and it's okay. I don't need to, get $20 for them or something, but you could do that too. We could put them on Craigslist and that kind of thing. And it's also slowed me down because I try to ask these questions before I buy something, all the ones that I mentioned when I was buying that rug. And I try to ask these questions before I discard them. I try to ask, will I value this item? And that means use it, right? Will I value it? Will I use it? What's the estimated life of this item? Can I or will I take responsibility for this item through to the end of its life? What does it look like to take responsibility for it? Am I up for the task? And if not, what are the other options to meet those needs? Can I borrow it? Can I rent it? Can I make it? So there's other ways to maybe get the thing you think you need or want, right? Can I delay purchasing it until I know it answers some of those questions, until I've answered some of those questions, right? When I'm buying something, I ask, where was it made? How was it made? Who made it? What materials is it made of? Are in it. Yeah, you get it. I'm coming to the end of my ability to talk anymore and be coherent. Will it last a long time so I don't have to replace it anytime soon? If it fails, if it breaks, if it rips, can I repair it? Do I know who those repair people are? I mean, are there, are there people who do that? Like, I just went up and got some boots fixed up at the cobbler. David got a zipper on one of his fleeces. If you've ever seen pictures, the only thing David wears fleeces. He has like 30 fleeces and he wears them all. And one of them that was like nostalgic, I think it was given to him from his previous company that he was at for 12 years. The zipper broke. And so we went and got it fixed. It cost us more to fix that zipper than it cost to make that fleece. But, in the spirit of fixing what with what we have, and we were willing to do that, we did that at the cobbler. So they were able to, and then a purse also, one of my Arceo bags, one of the little zippers broke. And so I brought that up to the cobbler and he fixed it. So, right. So can I repair it? And who is that person who will repair it? Is there a warranty? Is there a warranty? Because that indicates the manufacturer's confidence in the value of that item. And what are the terms of the warranty? And, do you have to apply for it? So knowing those things, right? Before I discard something, I ask, does it still have function that can be used for the purpose for which it was made? For instance, an empty glass bottle or an empty glass jar. Can I wash that out and reuse it to hold something else instead of recycling it so that it gets made into another glass bottle? Like, can I use that glass bottle or that glass jar? Right? Does it still have function that it can be used for the purpose for which it was made? Right? Can I dispose of it in a way that will still provide value, like composting a banana peel? Right? That's going to continue the value of that banana peel because I'm composting and it's going to be used for nutrients for the soil, or giving a piece of clothing to someone who's going to wear it. That's why I like giving things on Buy Nothing, because I know the person's going to wear it, right? Instead of just bringing everything to Goodwill. So that creates value. Can I dispose of it? Can I get it off my hands in a way that it will still provide value? And if not, do I need to consult someone? Can I consult some resources so that I can dispose of it in a responsible manner? That's why I took the time to write to Ridwell, and I will still figure out what to do with this rug. But there's, it required some research, and that's why I looked things up with Ridwell and TerraCycle, because I want to be able to dispose of the things I can't dispose of responsibly or just pass on, right, in a responsible manner. And so there you go. You got TerraCycle, you got Ridwell. So these are the questions you can return to again and again throughout your journey until they become second nature in your thoughts and in your behavior. And so I hope that provides a roadmap for you. I hope this is helpful for you. I hope this inspires a new way of thinking and being, and so that all of this becomes habitual. The slightest thing we do is great. It's fantastic. And so whatever you can do, do it. Don't do nothing because you can't do everything. Do something, anything. I'm going to go have some blueberries for the animals. This is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. Thanks for listening to the last hour and a half.